Welcome everyone to lecture number 43. In this lecture we are going to discuss about the Juvenile Justice Act, okay, and the 2015 that was taken passed by the Parliament, started from the 2014, okay. So within this it comes under the IPC Act. In the IPC Act there is two sections, section 82 and 83 of IPC. Section 82 says that nothing is an offense. Section 82 tells that nothing is an offense which is done by a child under 7 years of age, okay. And this section 83 tells that nothing is an offense which is done by the child which is above 7 years of age and under 12 age, who has not attained sufficient maturity of understanding to judge the nature and consequences of his conduct of the occasion, okay. So two act sections are there under IPC, section 82 and section 83. Section 82 that nothing is an offense if it is conducted by a child who is under the age of 7 years, and section 83 tells that nothing is an offense which is done by a child above 7 years of age and under 12, because they don't have an understanding of maturity of understanding the judge of the nature of consequences of his conduct of the occasion, okay. So act of a child, act of a child, first, under 7 years, under 7 years is not liable, okay. Now above 7 years, above 7 years but below 12 years, okay. So under this two conditions are there of maturity in intellect. We'll discuss all those things of maturity intellect. Regarding that, the child will be liable, and of immature intellect, not liable, okay. That if a certain act is done where the maturity is required, which is not related to the maturity and all, so in that case the child will be prosecuted, and what that prosecution is very different from other criminal acts, and if it is related to that he is immature and all, so in that case the child is not liable. And now the third scenario is that above 12 years of age the child will be liable, okay. This is the act that comes under the 2014 judgment or 2015 Act, Juvenile Justice Act. Previous legislation, what was the previous legislation that were present? What was the previous legislation? The Apprentices Act. the Apprentices Act of 1850 was there. The Reformatory School Act of 1876 and the recommendation of Indian Jails Committee 1990-20. And Children Act of 1960 and Juvenile Act of 1986. Okay, so these were the previous legislation with respect to the children. Okay, now according to the Juvenile Act of 1986, according to this Juvenile Act of 1986, boy will be considered as a child. Boy is a child if it is less than 16 years of age, and girl is a child till she is 18 years of less than 18 years of age. Okay, criminal judgment or practices not by regular court but by juvenile justice board will happen. So if any criminal activity is conducted, so that will not be considered under the regular court like the district court, high court, supreme court. There will be a separate court for them, and that court is called as a juvenile justice board. Okay, we'll understand the other aspects of this juvenile thing. See, United Nations standard minimum rule, there is a something called a United Nations standard minimum rules for administration of juvenile justice. United Nations standard minimum rules for administration of juvenile justice 1985. Under this there is something called as the Beijing rules. The Beijing rules, what is that? A juvenile is a child or a young person who under the respective legal system may be dealt with for an offense in a manner which is different from an adult. In those legal system recognizing the concept of the age of criminal responsibility for the juveniles, the beginning of that age shall not be fixed at too low an age level, bearing in the mind the facts of emotional, mental and intellectual maturity, and juveniles in institution shall be kept separate from adult and shall be detained in a separate institution or the separate part of an institution also holding adults in that. Okay, so what is that? Let me write it down, that the Beijing rules. A juvenile is a child or young person who under the respective legal systems may be dealt with for an offence in a manner which is different from an adult. A juvenile is a child. Who is juvenile? The question is that who is juvenile? So juvenile is a child or a young person who under the respective legal system may be dealt with for an offence in a manner which is different from an adult. It means that in a simple term, a person who is very young, okay, has done a certain crime, and that crime, if it is done by some other person, some matured person, will be considered as a offence for that person. Now that crime is conducted by that young person or a child, so in that case a separate jurisdiction, a separate rule will be applied to that child and all. So that person who has conducted that crime will be considered as a juvenile. Okay, so what is juvenile? A juvenile is a child or a young person who under the respective legal system, it can be of India, of any other nation, okay, who under the respective legal system may be dealt with for an offence, that a juvenile, that person will dealt with any offence that he has done in a manner which is different from an adult. Okay, so now the same offence, if it is conducted by an adult, that person will be treated differently, and that offence is done by a child or a young person, so that's why he will be treated in a different way, and that person will be called as a juvenile. Okay, understood? That is the meaning of juvenile. Okay, now in this legal system, the legal system that I am talking about here, in those legal systems recognizing the concept of the age of criminal responsibility for juveniles. The beginning of that age shall not be fixed at too low an age level bearing in mind the facts of emotional, mental and intellectual maturity. Okay, what does this mean? See, the legal system that I am talking about here in the definition of juvenile, so in those legal system, recognizing the concept that we have to recognize the concept, the age of criminal responsibility. Let us suppose a child who has at the age of 14 has started taking drugs. Okay, now that taking a drugs, he is not much aware about the consequences of that thing. Okay, he is not that matured to think about what will be the consequence of that drugs that he is going to take. That we have seen a very famous news, the Sulochan one. Okay, So in those legal systems, we have to recognize the concept of age, that if a person, that drugs is not allowed in the country, it is illegal, the consuming of the drugs, not I'm talking about the medicines and all, uh, that you understood, okay, that kind of drugs, illegal drugs, okay. So if that kind of illegal drugs are being consumed by the children, so we have to consider that age things also in that, because the children have don't that kind of mindset. So in those legal systems, recognizing the concept of the age of criminal responsibility, we have to consider the age, that at this age, if any crime is being done, he is not responsible for that, okay, because he's not that mature to think about that. Yes, if it is supposed that the same illegal drugs is being consumed by the age of a person who is the age of 25 years of age, so yes, he is responsible for that crime, because he is much aware that what is the consequence of that. It is banned in India and I'm consuming that. Okay, so in those legal systems, recognizing the concept of the age of criminal responsibility for juveniles, the beginning of that age shall not be fixed at too low an age level, bearing in the mind the facts of emotion, mental and intellectual maturity. So what it is telling, that when we are telling that the person who is less than 18 years of age will be treated in this way, the person who is less than 12 years of age will be treated in that way, and 7 years of age will be treated in this way, okay. So it's telling that we should not consider that age very low also, okay, considering that that age of 16. Now if a child who is from the age of 16 and all have done some heinous crime, so in that way he will be persecuted as a adultery judgments and all, adultery crimes and all, okay. So we have to consider things of the emotions also, that we have to consider that the child is much more matured in that age. We should not take that age things very low, otherwise the person will start to uh, take benefit uh, of this age, lowering of that age. Let us suppose if I am telling that if you do a crime and your age is less than 21 years of age, you will not be convicted under the jail, persecuted under jail and all, okay. Now at that age, people are very smart, they are completely matured, okay. The brain has an understanding of what is true, what is false, what is correct for them, what is not correct for them. In that case also, if they are doing the crime, so they are utilizing that gap, that the government has given the permission, that if you do the crime also at the age of 21, you are not persecuted, okay. So that kind of thing should not be there. We should understand that the age gap should not be fixed at very low, okay. The standard should be there. That's what it's telling, that the beginning of that age shall not be fixed at too low an age level, bearing in the mind that the facts of emotional, mental and intellectual maturity should be there. Until and unless that, if a person has not emotional, mental and intellectual maturity, so yes, in that case the person will not be charged. So that age we should define. And yes, if we say if the person is a mad, if the mental treatment is going to that person, and if in that case if person has done a crime, he will not be persecuted in the court, because he is not in a complete mental condition. His mental condition is not stable, okay. So that kind of a law is there within the country. So this thing is being explained by this is the meaning of this statement, that in those legal system, recognize the concept that we have to recognize the age of the criminal responsibility for the juveniles, and the beginning of that age shall not be fixed too low an age level, bearing in the mind that the facts of emotional mentality and intellectual maturity should be there. Now juvenile, what is juvenile? We have understood what is juvenile. Now another important term, that juveniles in institution shall be kept separate from adult and shall be detained in a separate institutions or in a separate part of an institution also holding adults. The simple meaning is that we should not keep the juvenile with the adult criminals and all. We should have a separate holding for that juveniles and all. Okay, so if a juvenile is in institution with like the prisons and all, so juveniles in institution shall be kept separate from adult and shall be detained in a separate institution or in a separate part of an institution also holding adult. Like separate institution means like how Juvenile Justice Act, juvenile courts are there. Okay, they are not charged under the regular courts. Okay, they have a separate court. Okay, so that kind of things it is talking about. Through this, these things are collected through the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Administration of Juvenile Justice Act of 1985. Okay, this was the three things, the Beijing rules. This comes under through the Beijing rules. Okay, now we are talking about, now we'll discuss the UN Convention. UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989. Okay, see, the UN Convention on the Rights of Child, 1989, it draws attention to 4 sets of civil, political, social, economic and cultural rights of every child. 4 sets of civil, political, social, economic and culture. Okay, on that aspect the UN Convention talks about. So these are the total 4 aspects UN talks, the 4 sets it talks about considering these points: civil, political, social, economical and culture. On that basis it draws the attention. The first thing, among the 4 sets, the first set is right to survival. See, it includes the right to life, the highest attainable standard of health, nutrition and adequate standards of living. It also includes the right to a name of nationality under this right to survival. The second thing, right to protection. Right to protection. It includes freedom from all forms of exploitation, abuse, inhuman and degradation treatment and neglect, including the right to a special protection in situation of emergency and armed conflicts. Okay, in that case also, if any crime is conducted by the child, it is not be concluded as the offense. The child have a right to survival, right to protection, and the third is the right to development. Right to development. What it includes? It includes the right to education, support for early childhood development and care, social security and the right of leisure, recreation and cultural activities. All those things will be included under the right to development. And the fourth point is, the fourth set as per the UN is right to participation. Right to participation. What it includes? It includes the respect for the views of the child, freedom of expression, access to appropriate information, and freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Okay. The age under it, the UNCRC states that the signatory countries should treat every child under the age of 18 years in the same manner and not try them as adults. As per the UN, they tell that, sorry, if the child is under the age of 18, we should not consider them as an adult. Okay. But in the India, in the Juvenile Justice Act that we considered, we made some changes in India. Okay. The first was started in the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act of 2000. Okay. In this I have given the union forms. Okay. First was with respect to the United Nations standard, and another by the United Nation Convention on the Right of Child and all. Okay. Now, what is the point that India did? India made some changes. Okay. What are the changes that were made by the India? So India had a Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2000. Okay. What happened? The age for boys and girls was uniformly raised to 18 years of age in accordance with United Nations. Okay. It deals separately with two categories of children. That is, child in need of care and protection. Two things: child who is in need of care and protection, and other juvenile in conflict with law. Okay. Now the question arises, who is the child in need of care and protection? Who is that child in need of care and protection? And who is a juvenile in conflict with the law? So it is a child who, due to various reasons, is found in difficult circumstances and is in danger of survival and growth. That child will be considered under the need of care and the protection. And who will be under the juvenile with the conflicting for the law? Who are alleged to have committed an offense. So the child who has done some crime, in that case he will be considered as a juvenile one. Okay. And the child who has done due to various reasons, he is found in difficult circumstances, unable to feed, get a nutrition, survival and growth, he have went into a wrong practices. So in that case, the child will need a care and the protection. So these are the two things, and these are the conditions for that, how we will be categorizing the child into these two sections. Okay. So competent authority will be there. So under this, under the first one, who is the authority? Who will be the authority to check for that? So the authority for the first category, the child in need of care and the protection, will be the child welfare committee. There will be a child welfare committee. Okay. And in the second scenario, who will be there? Juvenile justice will be there. The competent authority will be, is the juvenile justice will be the competent authority. Okay. Now we have to see juvenile justice board. What exactly is that juvenile justice board? Juvenile justice board, JLB. What is its composition? Okay, what is its composition? In metropolitan magistrate or judicial magistrate of the first class will be there. Judicial magistrate of the first class will be there. 2 social workers will be there. Among them, at least one of whom should be a woman or woman. Sorry. Okay. So among these 2 social workers, one must be a woman. Both can be women, but both can't be a man. Okay. At least one will be a woman. Second, all 3 people, that magistrate and 2 social worker. So all 3 people from a form a bench that are to function as a unit. Okay. So these together they will form as a bench to form a single unit. Okay. So this is a juvenile justice board composition. Whenever we are talking juvenile justice board, so this will be the juvenile justice board. It will be considered 3 people bench. Among one will be the magistrate or a judicial magistrate, and 2 social worker will be there, and among the 2 social worker, one must be a woman. Okay. So what does 2000 Act say? That juveniles are not exposed to the media as a magazine, newspapers and visual media are not permitted to release the information about the juvenile. Sorry. And maximum punishment is 3 years. And whatever the punishment will be given to the juvenile, that will not be in a regular jail. There will be a separate jail for that juvenile. Okay. Now, in the few years, there was a rise in juvenile delinquency. Okay. There was started to be a rise in juvenile delinquency. There was a rise in that. How? What happened? See. Participation in illegal behavior by the minors was increased. It has been seen. Okay. Participation, that there was issues that was reported in the juvenile delinquency. Among them, what are the things that caused those things? So it was found that the participation in illegal behavior by minors was raised. 30% rise in crimes by juveniles in the period 2012 to 14 it was observed. According to National Crime Record Bureau NCRB, the percentage of juvenile crimes as a proportion of total crimes has increased from 1% to 1.2% from 2003 to 2013. Okay, as per the crime NCRB record, the period is 2003 to 2013 data. 70% of the juveniles accused of crimes are in the age are in the age group of 16 to 18. So whatever the Juveniles Act are being most of the crime has been conducted, those juveniles are between the age of 16 to 18. 70% of the crimes are between from the people who are from the 16 to 18. So that's why it has become mandatory and to make a law to give a punishment for those people also. And that was the voice was raised much more with much more power, much more focused and all after the this Delhi rape case. Okay, so there is a concept something called as a rights of the victim. Rights of the victim. What is that? We'll see. Recently, the Supreme Court, while hearing a case related to the juvenile crime, observed that the 2000 Act, Juvenile 2000 Act, needs to be reviewed due to increasing heinous offences by the juveniles. Okay, and the law needs to be deter juveniles from committing heinous crimes and safeguarding the rights of the victim, because due to the protection that was given to the juveniles and the most of the crime, it has been observed that it has been done by those juveniles who are present between the 16 to 18 years of age. So Supreme Court observed that there must, because 70% of the cases that are 70% of the crime that was being done by the juveniles are from the 16 to 18 years of age. The Supreme Court has found that there must be something wrong with the act that has been done in the 2000 Act. Okay, and Supreme Court said that we need to review that act, that because the heinous crime was getting increased by the juveniles. The law needs to be deter juveniles from the committing heinous crime and safeguarding the rights of the victim. There is the right of the victim and we have to safeguard that. So for crimes like rape and murder, it is hard to conceive that the juvenile is not aware of the consequences. Because let us suppose if a boy or a girl or whatever the person is between the age of the 16 or 18 years of age, it is not possible that he is not aware that rape is a crime or murder is a crime. That person is aware that rape and murder is a crime. Okay, so in that perspective, Supreme Court said that we should consider and we have to make a changes in the law that such person within the age of 16 to 18 years of age should also be convicted under the crime if they are doing any heinous crime. Okay, and in that case the Juvenile Justice Case and Protection Bill 2014 was presented and in 2015 it was passed. Okay, so Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Bill 2014 was passed. It replaced Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act of 2000. It replaced that thing. The bill permits juvenile between the age of 16 to 18 years age to be tried as an adult for a heinous crime. Okay, what it tells that the bill permits juveniles between the age of 16 to 18 years to be tried as adults for any heinous crime. Okay, what does the law say? The offenses committed by juveniles are categorized as. So now what are the laws has been made in the favor with respecting to the juveniles? So offenses committed by juveniles are categorized as: first, heinous crime; second, serious crime; and third, petty offences. What are the things we will consider under the heinous crime? Those with a minimum punishment of 7 years of imprisonment under IPC, or it is minimum 7 years will be there. What will the serious offenses? If the person does serious offenses, 3 to 7 years of imprisonment. And petty offenses like pickpocketing and all, below 3 to 7 years of imprisonment. Okay, so a juvenile cannot be given life imprisonment without the possibility of release or death penalty. Okay, a juvenile cannot be given life imprisonment without the possibility of release, that there should be a possibility of a release, or uh, or without the death penalty. Okay, life imprisonment can't be given, that death penalty, without death penalty uh, we can't give life imprisonment, so death penalty can also be considered for that. Okay, so any person who is between the age of 16 to 18 years and has committed a heinous crime may be tried as an adult irrespective of date of apprehension. So in all other cases, juveniles will get a maximum of 3 years in institutional cases, or determined by the Juvenile Justice Board. So how will the law passed? So in case of heinous offences, if a juvenile is apprehended before 21 years of age, a check will be there. Will conduct a preliminary inquiry. This will determine his mental, physical capacity to commit an offence and an understanding of its consequences. The Juvenile Justice Board will then pass an order that recommends intervention like counseling or community service, staying at an observatory home for a temporary or a long time period, and refer the juvenile to a children's court to determine whether the trial is an adult or not. Okay, so there is a separate kind, like categorization is completely subjective matter. Okay, so whatever the crime is conducted by the juvenile, that crime will be considered under the heinous crime or serious crime or petty offences. So regarding that categorization, it is completely a subjective thing. Okay, for that a Juvenile Justice Board can pass the order to recommend, to get a recommendation that shall we consider that crime as a heinous, serious or petty offences. And how they will consider it, like, so let us suppose because at the end they are under the 18 years of age, so we have to understand their mindset. Let us suppose that that person himself is not correct with the mind. Okay, so the person will kept under the observatory house, and they will observe that person, like how is it behaving within the 24 hours, whether he is matured or not, whether his mindset is correct or not. If his mindset is not correct, so Juvenile Justice Board will be given the direction that his mindset is not correct, and whatever the offences he has committed, he is not in his full mind, and thus we should categorize into something a petty offense or serious offenses kind of categorization and all. Okay, so that kind of things intervening is done by the Juvenile Justice Board. Okay, that kind of in that way we will be considering the offenses that have been committed by the juveniles. Okay, and after that only, whenever this categorization will come, then after that only the child will be sent to the court. Okay, yeah, let me correct that thing, that juvenile cannot be given a death penalty and all. Okay, death penalty and all cannot be given to a juvenile. Okay, yeah. So this was all about now after a children court is a supreme court notified under the Commission for Protection of Child Act 2005. Okay, let's keep this lecture till here. We'll continue this lecture in the next session. So this was all about. So yeah, juvenile can also not be considered for the life imprisonment, and can also and can't be taken for the capital punishment, other death penalty. There are years for that. Till that, juveniles will be given that punishment as per the crimes that we have categorized: heinous, serious, or petty offences. A children court is a session court. What is the children's court? Children court is a session court notified under the Commission for the Protection of Child Act 2005. For the purpose of this bill, the protection of a bill was brought up. What was that bill? Children's court is a session court notified under the Commission for Protection of Child Rights Act 2005. Okay. So for the purpose of this bill, the Child Act 2005, once a juvenile is referred by a juvenile justice board to a children's court, it will determine whether to try him as an adult or as a recommended counseling, stay at an observatory home, etc., whatever we have discussed earlier. Okay. Another provision of this bill talks about the adoption. Okay. In this the Protection of Child Act of 2005. What is this adoption one? The Central Adoption Resource Agency, CARA, will frame regulations on adoption, that how the child will be adopted and all. Which agency? Central Adoption Resource Agency. Let me, regarding adoption also, this act talks about, and this will be done by the Central Adoption Resource Agency. Okay, in the short form known as a CARA. What is the global picture of this juvenile justice board and all? So in England and Wales, for several offences, children above the age of 10 are held to be criminal liable in England. In Australia, the prescribed age is 14 to 18 years of children to be responsible for their action under the criminal law. Okay, in all other countries these kind of things are there. Very less age is for the England. In England, from the age of 18, they can be criminally liable. In the United States, many states have the age of 12 years for holding children responsible for the criminal sex. We know in United States it is a unification of the state. Each state have a different rules, but many of the states they have a 12 years of age cap. In New York and Texas, the age is 17 years. In Bangladesh, it is 17 years, and in Denmark, it is 15 years. Psychologists now feel that the children are grown up by the age of 14. As per the psychologist, that earlier, when there is no that much digital era, the medicines and all, now the children are coming very smart from the birth itself. So as per them, from the age of 14, they are responsible for their action. Okay, now they are grown up. Now the children are grown up. Okay. So Nobel Peace Laureate Kailash Satyarthi hailed the passing of the bill as a major legislative reform. Whether it is a crime by a child or on a child, the focus has to be reform and restitution and not the deterrence. As per the this Nobel Peace winner Laureate Kailash Satyarthi, he said that we should not focus on punishment. We should not focus on the punishment. Rather than we should focus on the restitution, reformation. We should focus on the reformation, how to prevent those acts and all. We should not held that children into certain wrong things and all. Okay, children of who are getting a good education, disciplines and all, they are not indulged in such kind of activities. We have seen those children only who are not getting good parenting and all. Okay, that kind of children are being indulged in such kind of activities. So that's what Nobel Peace winner Laureate Kailash Satyarthi said, that we should focus on the reformation, not on the deterrence. The protection framework provided under this law is extremely robust as per him. What the criticism that was made, that we the age that we reduced? So 56% of the juvenile accused of the crimes come from a families whose annual income does not exceed 25,000. Just now I have said that the children who are not getting good parenting, who are not living in a good society, those kind of children are found in such kind of activities and crimes. So the percentage of that kind of, we have seen what percentage, whatever the crime are being conducted by the juveniles, most of the crimes, the 70% crimes are from the age between the 14 to 18 years of age. Okay, and now, and whatever the crimes are being conducted, 56% of the crimes are from those children whose family incomes are annually incomes are less than 25,000. Okay, so that's what laureate Kailash Satyarthi said, that we should focus on the reformation. Why the children are being found in such condition and they are committing the crime? They are not being much aware about the consequences of these things. Okay, so we should focus on that thing. 1 in 8 juvenile criminal is an orphan. That whatever the crime is being conducted among 1 is to 8, that children are orphan. They don't have a parent, not good parenting is provided to them. Just 1.2% of all crimes are committed by the juveniles. As we have seen that as per the data, it was 1% and it increased to 1.2% from 2000 to 2013, I guess. And now this only 1.2% are being conducted by the juveniles. So we should focus on that less data. We should have to consider why this thing is happening. 6% of all rape accused are juveniles. 87% of juveniles are criminals never went to the high school. So they are not much aware about the society. They are not aware about the sociological concepts, and that's why we have it is seen that these children are being indulged in that kind of activities. Some says against UN Convention on the Right of the Children that age 18 should be there. Our is 16 to 18. So that's what the criticism that has been made, that we have reduced the age to 16 to 18. Okay, so yeah, so we are against the UN convention. We are against the UN convention things. As per our law, 16 to 18 years age, the categorization of the act will be done. Okay, if a juvenile did a crime between 16 to 18 and accused on after age 21, he shall be run under the normal code. Let us suppose a person who has done a crime 16 to 18 years of age, and he was accused after 21. So now he will be considered under the normal court, not juvenile court at that time, because the current age is 21. So his mind is mature to understand, yes, the whatever the punishment will be given, the punishment will be given as per the crime, whatever the age that he was there, as per that only he will be the punishment will be given. But yes, the prosecution process will be conducted as per the age 21 normal court, as per the adult he will be done. Okay, so rise in juvenile delinquency has been seen, that the age of consent of sexual for 16, 18 years, you are not old enough to drive, drink, vote, but you are old enough to jail. Okay, that was the question raised when the government reduced the age to 16 to 18 years age to conduct any crime for the juvenile. So that was the thing, question was raised, that the government is telling that you are not old enough to drive, you can't drive, your driving license is given once you attain the 18 years of age, you can't drink, you can't vote also, for voting also you must be attain at least 18 years of age, but you are old enough to be committed to a crime into a jail. Okay, so that is kind of a irony. Justice Verma committee said that we felt that if a child less than 18 years is subjected to a normal trial and a normal jail, these remains no chance of rehabilitation. They often turn into a hardened criminals, repeated offenders. Moreover, the child brain at the age is still in the formative stage and they are normally matured yet to understand the full implication of their action. So Judge Justice Verma committee said that if we are convicting the children below 18 years of age, so their child has not matured enough, they are learning, and due to that punishment that we are going to give rehabilitation, they are not going to rehabilitate and they will become a hardened criminal offenders and all. Okay, so that's what we have to focus, that thing we should also consider. Parliamentary Standing Committee, the existing juvenile system is not only a reformative and rehabilitatory in nature, but also recognize the fact that 16 to 18 years age is an extremely sensitive and critical age requiring greater protection. Hence, there is no need to subject them to a different or adult judicial system. that these are the point that is against that why we should not consider them in adult judicial system. There are many pending 45, there are 45,000 plus cases are pending against juvenile justice board, and it is increasing. Other issues with the juvenile justice board, that most cases of juvenile crimes stem from the substance abuse, uh, ages and all. A report by the Asian Center for Human Rights documented the title India is a hellhole. It extremely documented the incident of child sexual assault in juvenile homes. Children can complain directly to the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Children about alleged violation in the rights. That is correct. And right victim cannot be disclosed under any circumstances. Okay. As per the Article 228A, criminalized directory of the name should not be disclosed. Okay, that cannot be disclosed, and the Article 228 Article 228A clause 2(5). If written consent is given by the victim in connected state of mind, then only the case will be considered for the children. Okay, so this all I just told you the story. For that we have already covered what are the concept that we should cover and understand and all. Okay, so this was all about in this lecture. I hope you have understand it. Please like and subscribe. This is a new channel, we really need your support. If you have any doubt, please connect with me on social media handle, or please drop a comment within the video section. I will be happy to help you and reply over there. Thank you.